Hey everyone, welcome. And if you're into networking, I'm sure you've probably heard of autonomous access points and lightweight access points. But the thing is, a lot of people don't really know what they are or when they get used, when either of them get used. So in this video, I'll be giving a quick breakdown of what they are and how we can set both of them up. So we'll be using Cisco Packet Tracer to build an autonomous, wireless network and also a lightweight wireless network. So let's just jump straight into it. All right, so before we even get into what both of those devices are, we need to discuss what wireless access points are as a whole. So, wireless access points are basically devices, right? They provide wireless connectivities over a wired network. So, what an access point does is it uses Wi Fi signals, radio frequencies, and they have a wireless standard 802.11ac, 802.11ax, 802.11b. I think G. So we don't want to physically connect every single end device in the network. Your phone, you don't want to physically connect your phone. We don't want to physically connect your laptops all the time over the network, right? So sometimes we want wireless frequencies for mobility and for extended coverage. So that's what a wireless access point grants or offers us. So let's talk about the differences between these two access points. All right, so an autonomous access point is basically a standalone access point, right? That means they work independently. So and they are configured directly, configurations are made directly on the access point. So think of the SSID, IP address configs, and also security can be configured on each and every single one of these devices, right? So this is best used in small offices or small networks, right, where we have just a couple of access points and we want to give them their IP address, security, passwords and the like, and an SSID. So it is best used in small networks. While right, so the next thing we'll be talking about is the lightweight access points. So this is controller based. What this means is each and every single one of these access points cannot act independently. They are all controlled using a wireless LAN controller as we have here. So this device sends all the configuration. So it handles security, IP addressing, SSID, and the likes. So everything is being handled by a wireless LAN controller. So that is for centralized management, as we just discussed. So in a scenario where we have, large scale enterprise, think of a bank, think of, an hotel or maybe an airport, right? So in real world, we would have hundreds of these devices and we cannot physically configure each and every single one of them. That would be a very, that's a very big hassle. So each of these will be connected, maybe to a switch, and the switch, this also the wireless LAN controller would also be connected to the switch, and then it can automatically provision, these SSID, the IP address, and security to this device. It just controls everything. So that's basically what the lightweight access points are. All right. So all that being said, the key difference between these two is autonomous access point as localized control. So everything is done locally on the device, while lightweight access point has a centralized control. Everything is managed centrally using a wireless LAN controller. So now let's just go straight into setting them up. All right, so here is our wireless network setup. So on the left side, we have our autonomous wireless setup, and on the right side, we have the lightweight wireless setup, right? And this is basically what we would have in the real world. So we would have our end devices. So this is over down here, smartphones, laptops. We have the access points. So over here, if you look down here, we have APPT. So this is our autonomous access points, both of them set up here. We have a switch, and then we have our DHCP server. And also on the autonomous, on the lightweight side, right, we have our same DHCP server, we have our switch, we have the wireless LAN controller, and then this PC would be directly connected to it. So this would be used to manage the wireless LAN network. We have our lightweight access points, or that can also be gotten down here, LAPPT, right? So these are lightweight access points, and then we have our end devices as well. All right, so what I have done now is I have briefly set up the wired part of this wireless network, and I also set up our DHCP server. So I just set up the gateway, the IP address of the server itself, the DNS address, and as well as our pool start address. So let's just go over that briefly. So we have our default gateway, we have the DNS server, we also have the starting IP. So we want to start from 20 or 21 as I previously set up, and then we have our subnet mask. So let's save that briefly. So let's so as we discussed, right, so these devices can be configured individually, so we'll be going straight to that. So let's set up the autonomous access points. We already have the SSID we want to allocate and the password. So let's do just that, right? So let me copy this, and we know the password is office Wi-Fi. So let's turn on the device. We'll turn it on. We'll go to config, then port 0 and port 1. So we are going to port 1. So on port 1 we can set up the SSID of the device, which is office Wi-Fi. Then we want to set up, pre-shared key WPA2 for security, and we'll call it office Wi-Fi. We save that, we close it. And then we also want to do the same thing for guest, right? So the SSID for the guest over here is guest Wi-Fi. We copy that. We go over to the config. Oh no, we need to turn it on. Sorry. Turn this device on. We set up the SSID, which is guest Wi-Fi, right? And then we want to enable pre-shared key, and we want to also set up guest Wi-Fi, right? And yeah, that should do the trick. So yeah, now we have our devices turned on, and we can see, connectivity has been established. So the next thing to do is actually connect our end devices. So let's start with this tablet over here. We remember our SSID, right, is office Wi-Fi for the office network. So let's write that here, office dash Wi-Fi. And then we are using, security PSK. So let's also add the password. And yeah, that should do the trick. So let's give it a second, and boom, we've established wireless connectivity. So we can do the same thing, just to be very sure on another of the device here. Let me copy this, close this. So let's also connect here. We have wireless. Okay, so we've established connection on this second device, and now let's check the IP configuration to make sure we got our IP address from the DHCP pool. Nice. So we can see .23, and also we can see over here we have, let's see what we have here. We can see .24. So that's all good for office. Okay, so let's do the same thing on the guest network. Let's connect the end devices. So let's copy the SSID we have here. We go over to wireless on this tablet, we paste the SSID, and remember we're using PSK. So we'll type the password, which is guest Wi-Fi. And yeah, that should do the trick, and we should establish connectivity. Oh, perfect. So now we have, connectivity established here. And if we proceed, we would also do the same thing. So this basically sums up how our autonomous, wireless setup works, right? So we have these devices in a small network, and they would be configured individually, and they can work on their own. They operate, separately and individually. Okay, so let's get to the lightweight network, right? So for the lightweight wireless network, we have the same DHCP server, but this is its own, its own IP address. So we are using the 20 network here. The wireless LAN controller will have its own IP, as well as the management PC I earlier talked about. It will also have its own IP address. So I've configured an IP address here. I've configured the DHCP pool. All right, so let's just configure this wireless, LAN controller with its own IP address. So for that, we'll be going over to management over here, and we'll set up an IP address of 192.168.20.10, if I remember correctly. And the default gateway, that's the IP address. We have the subnet mask of 255.255.255.0, default gateway of 1, and also a DNS server of 8.8.8.8. Yeah, so that is the setup for this management interface. So the difference between the DHCP server on the autonomous system and the DHCP server on the lightweight system here is that this now, the DHCP server would have to indicate that we have a wireless LAN controller by adding its address. So let's just paste that here and then let's hit save, right? So now our DHCP server is properly configured with its IP, the gateway, and all of that. Okay, so let's just jump straight into configuring this device. So we have this IP address and we would be controlling or configuring it from this PC. So the first thing we can do is ping it to make sure everything is properly set up. Nice. So we are getting reply from the wireless LAN controller from this desktop or from this laptop. So let's just go straight to configure our wireless LAN controller. So we'll go here and we'll be using this web interface or graphical user interface for all our configurations of the wireless LAN controller. So let's just go here. Nice. All right, we can see the web interface and we'll be using, so this is to create an admin account. Let's just do that real quick. So we'll be using Novatech, let's say Novatech admin as the username. Let's use the same thing for the password. Yep, let's see if that works. Okay, no worries. We need a number. So let's just do Novatech 123. 123. Same thing here, Novatech 123. And wow, we are in. So now it's asking for the system name. So this would be, we can just use Novatech wireless. So this, since that's what we're trying to set up. So this would be Novatech wireless as the system name. I see my country, the time zone, the management IP address, very important. And that would be the IP address we set up for the wireless LAN controller. We already know that 192.168.10, dot 20 dot 10, and then the subnet mask of 255.255.255.0, sorry, and a default gateway of dot one, right? Dot one. And now management VLAN ID. So since we are not working with VLANs, right, we will not be touching this aspect. Okay, nice. It's asking for, security. So now the network name, we can use the same name, which is we use Novatech wireless, right, as the network name. So we'll be setting up, since this is WPA2 personal, we'll be using a password. So let's use Novatech 123, or just to be sure, Novatech 123, confirm password, same thing. And we are not using VLANs. Like I said earlier, we didn't set up any VLANs, but if we did, we'd be using all of that here. And then let's just hit next. We don't need to touch any of this virtual IP. And it's just, this is like a confirmation prompt just to check everything, make sure all is good. And we are not good, right? So management IP gateway should not be 11, it should be dot one. So let's go back and make sure of that. That was probably a typo. Yeah, dot one as the default gateway. Okay, so that's why it's very important to check before you confirm. So let's go over this. And yeah, we should be good, right? We are good. So apply. Now it takes a couple of minutes to propagate, but we could close this, try again. We could try to fast forward things or skip things forward by a couple of minutes. If it doesn't work, we can just close and try again, right? So let's just try to ping just to make sure everything works as expected. Okay, ARP. And yeah, we are back. So yeah, we can visit this IP again via the management desktop we have here. Oh, let's close this web browser, paste the IP and press enter. All right, so since we've set up some form of security, we need to use HTTP secure over here. And yep, now it's asking us to log in, right? So we need to remember the username and the password we set up. So the username we have was Novatech admin for the admin interface, and password was Novatech 123, if I remember correctly. So this takes a couple of seconds to boot up. All right, so now that it's up, the first thing we see is the monitor tab, which just shows us a brief summary of everything going on this device, right? So we see the IP, we see the software version, we see the name, we see the, the time it's been up, the current date time, I think, the temperature, CPU, memory usage, and all of that, right? What that just shows us is a brief summary of everything going on the system. So let's set up our wireless LAN now, shall we? Okay, so remember on our autonomous system, we set up two different LANs, right? Two different wireless LAN, one for the office and one for guests. Now, for the wireless LAN we'll be setting up here, would basically be doing the same thing. We want our guest Wi-Fi and we want our office Wi-Fi separated, but now it's more or less virtual. Compared to here, it was physical on the autonomous system. We physically separated them, but here we want to virtually segment or separate them, just like VLAN. So let's go, we'll create new and then we hit go. All right, so we would add the profile name. For this, we want this to be our office network, right? So the SSID would be office, and then we hit apply. Okay, so once we hit apply, we see this, right? And now we can just quickly set up the wireless LAN for the office network. So we want to enable it, right? And then we also want to set up security on it. So we want would be on this layer 2 security, we'll be having WPA2. We want to enable this WPA policy, and then we'll be using pre-shared key, right? So let's enable that and set up the password. So for office, we'll be using office Wi-Fi as the password. And yeah, we can go ahead and apply. So we hit apply to just save that settings. All right, so we are done with office network. So let's create another one. We hit WLAN again, and now we want to create a new one for the guest network. So we have guest network over here, and we'll call the SSID guest. Okay, and then we hit apply. Nice. So we can see the guest network here. We'll do the same thing we did. So we want to enable, we go over to security, we set up WPA2, we enable the WPA2 policy. It uses AES encryption, of course, and then we want to set up pre-shared key. So for this, we'd also be using guest Wi-Fi as the password, right? And let's just hit enable once more. All right, once that is all set up, we can go over to now. Another thing we want to create is groups, right? So wireless network, think of wireless network like or wireless LAN, right, as a logical segmentation. Now AP groups, now what that does is, now that we've created this logical segmentation, we now want to add those physical devices installed in the ceiling or wherever, right? We want to add those devices to the group. So let's say we have 10 wireless access points, right? 5 for guest and 5 for the office. So we've created two different wireless LAN, office wireless LAN and guest wireless LAN. So what we want to do with AP groups is say, oh, 5 of these physical devices would be on this wireless LAN. On the office wireless LAN, while 5 other of these devices would be on the guest wireless LAN. I hope that makes sense. So let's just do it and then it would make more sense. Okay, so what we'll do next is we'll click on add group to create a new group, right? So let's it's asking for the group name, so we can call this office. I just call it office, that's the name of the group, or office wireless, right? And then we'll say all office access points, right? And then we click add. Then once this loads up, let's also create that for of guests, right? So let's call this guest wireless. That will be the group name, and we say all guest access points. Oh, sorry. And then we click add as well. Okay, so we have these two groups, and now what we want to do is add these devices to the group, right? So we can add IT and admin to one group, which is Office Wireless, and we can add guest, as many guest access points as we have to the guest wireless, if that makes sense. So let's just do that, right? So let's start with Office, right? Okay, so for the Office, we would go to the wireless LAN, right? So what wireless LAN do we want to add to this Office network? And obviously that would be our Office wireless LAN we have here. So we'll just click on add new, we'll click on Office, then we'll click on add, right? And then we'll wait for that to load up. Okay, so the next thing we want to add are the access points. So let's click on access points, and then we have the, sorry, let me move this. So we have our IT and we have our admin Wi-Fi, and those are the access points we want to add to the guest group, right? So we have admin and IT, and then we click on this button here, which is add AP, warning, changing the AP, we reboot. Yeah, we agree. So we click on that, and then we just wait for it to load up, right? And that's it. We've added the access points to the Office group, right? So we'll do the same thing for guests. We'll click on the guest wireless network. We add the wireless LAN, so that's guests, and then we click add. We wait for that to load up. Okay, then we also want to add the guest access points, which is guest Wi-Fi. That's this device we have here. And we can see this group has changed, right? So this group would also change. So let's add AP. We let it tell the story, just warning, letting us know it will be rebooted. All right, and that should do it, right? So let's just go, let's check out our devices. Let's see what's going on there, right? So let's just over this, and yeah, immediately we can see the status showing up. We can see it already as an IP address from our DHCP server. We can see capwap status says connected to the wireless LAN controller's IP address. So capwap is the protocol that is used to connect, or that the access points and the wireless controller used to connect with each other, right? And then we can see providing wireless LAN to be the Office network. As we can see, Office network in bracket Office, which is the SSID. Now let's go over to admin and see what's going on there. We see the same thing. It now has an IP address. It's capwap status is connected, and we can see it's also the providing wireless LAN is also the Office network, right? And then lastly, let's go over to guests, and same thing. We can see it's connected to the LAN controller, and also it's providing wireless LAN is the guest network. So now we can connect our end devices to these access points. So let's start with these tablets over here. We know our so as the SSID we set up is Office, right? So we'll just type that here, Office, and then the security we used Office Wi-Fi, and that should do the trick. So let's see what's going on here. Boom, and we are connected, right? But now remember, these two are sharing the same SSID and password, right? So just think of it for mobility. So if I'm moving across these offices, I can still maintain connectivity. Now I don't know why it's connecting all the way up here, but you know what, it works, and that's all that matters. So let's also connect this device. Let's see what happens. Office, and then let's put in the password, Office Wi-Fi, and yeah, that should do it. Boom, we are also connected. Okay, now that all that works, let's go over to our guest network. So let's connect this device. So it currently has its wireless module, wired module rather. We need to connect wireless. So let's turn this off, take this out, plug in our wireless, and then let's turn it back on. Yeah, so let's go over to wireless, and let's search for our Wi-Fi or our network. Okay, so we can see our guest network over here, which is good. So let's try to connect. If you remember the password, guest Wi-Fi, and then we hit connect. Okay, we can see adapter is active. Perfect. So we are able to establish connection via this end device. And let's see, it got its IP address within, the .20 network within the appropriate subnet mask, and we are good. Okay, so that will be it for this video. We've briefly seen how to set up the autonomous wireless network and also the lightweight wireless network using the wireless controller, an admin device, and the lightweight access point. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, and you can also subscribe because I would also be making more videos, covering broader topics like this. And yeah, that will be it for this video. Thank you very much.